It's bizarre how far electric has come in the past 10 years. But now that there's more than a solid few options out there in the electric world, does the E-Tron have what it takes to stand out? Let's find out.
If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel so I can take this to the next level. Thank you. Now back to the review.
The Audi E-Tron is a completely new model. It's not based on the Q5 or the Q7 or the Q8. It's got its own look to it too. While still keeping with the Audi brand image, this grille has vertical slats and most of it is blocked out because it doesn't need that much for cooling purposes. It also features standard LED headlights,
Plus a real vent that allows airflow to the wheel well.
Rather than a gaudy use of chrome, Audi chose to go with a brushed aluminum look around most of the vehicle, and that carries over to the side. As far as wheels go, both the Premium Plus and the Prestige come with 20-inch wheels. 21s are an option, and that's what we have here. The wheel wells themselves are huge. So even though these are 21-inch rims, they still have a decent amount of sidewall, so you're not like constantly worrying about chewing them up.
If you look closer at the wheels, you will notice the giant 15.7-inch rotors in the front of the E-Tron. This is one plump Audi, so those are certainly needed. When looked at from the side, the E-Tron appears low-slung when in its dynamic mode.
You can put it in off-road mode, and since it does have an air suspension, it'll rise up slowly to get more clearance, but the idea here was slipperiness. It has a 0.3 drag coefficient. In Europe, you actually get a better drag coefficient due to the camera mirrors.
Which is insane when you realize that this number matches the drag coefficient of the 2002 Acura NSX.
Power folding side mirrors are standard equipment on both the Premium Plus and Prestige, as is electronic door handles. On the Prestige, you do get soft closed doors that will slowly bring the door in, as they just did. The charging port is an interesting setup. It's just a little click and then it comes down out of your way electronically, whereas most others are manually operated. Unlike the Audi Q8, the E-Tron takes a much more conservative design. It's not as sharp. We have LED rear taillights that are also standard with a light bar that goes around the whole tailgate.
The aforementioned lights are Audi's HD Matrix design, which grants you a neat unlock scheme and the left and right turning signals. They also put a textured plastic piece on the bottom bumper that vaguely mimics exhaust pipes, which, if that was a joke from Audi, then overall the exterior looks premium, but not out of the norm. It's less striking than the Q8, which was probably the goal. Anyway, tell me what you think.
As with the outside, the Audi E-Tron is going to be very familiar, especially with the new dual screen layout. So we saw this first in vehicles like the A7 and the Q8 and now the new A6 too, and it's following those footsteps here. So you get a 10.1-inch MMI screen. This is the Prestige model, so we even get added things like advanced interior lighting and a fragrance if you really want it.
Prestige buyers also get a heads-up display, traffic sign recognition, an air ionizer that does cool science to give you cleaner air, and a thoughtful massage function on top of the standard heated and ventilated 12-way adjustable seats. Both the top and bottom screens offer haptic feedback that gives you clicky feel to your inputs. The amount of controls in here is immense, but Audi does a great job of organizing the features, so it's easy to become acclimated with it. On top of that, these screens offer tablet-like graphics and response times. If you prefer your smartphone OS, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard equipment.
You also get virtual cockpit standard, and man, it's really nice here, as it usually is. It's about the best digital gauge cluster system you can really think of. The controls are just on the steering wheel. They have a satisfying, nice tactile click to them, each and every one of them.
If tech is what you want, the e-Tron will not disappoint, and the materials are top notch as well. However, there are a few weak spots on the side of the center console, but overall, the interior looks beautiful.
We have real aluminum and real metal fixtures all around, Alcantara, leather, specifically Valcone leather on the Prestige trim. On the Premium Plus, you just get a regular leather. We also get a really nice wood trim on the top of the dash. Since this is an electric car too, we have a lot of extra space. One next to the knee. It's like a full glove compartment on the driver's side. It's pretty much unheard of. Then you also have a ton of space in the center console. But the Audi also includes a phone box, which means you get a boosted antenna for your phone and wireless charging. So you also get 4-zone automatic climate control as standard equipment. The Audi Park Assist system you activate in here works extremely well. You can see about every single thing you want. You kind of get into the habit of whenever you're pulling into parking spaces, just clicking this button so you can see everything.
The 3D view of the system is freaky good most of the time. The graphics get weird if someone is standing really close or the cameras are wet, but still, I found it really helpful when gauging parking barriers and curbs.
When it comes to sound, we get Audi's Bang & Olufsen premium 3D sound system in here, and that's standard equipment in both the Premium Plus and the Prestige. The cold weather package will give you heated rear seats as well. As you can assume with a mid-size SUV, you're gonna have a decent amount of space. I can easily sit in a pretty comfortable position at my 6'3" frame. So now let's hop in the back seat and see if I can fit behind myself. Now that I'm behind myself in the front seat, I find that I have about like Subaru Forester level space, maybe a little bit less. It's not too impressive, but I do have enough to at least sit back, fit my head, no grazing involved. The roof line in this is more traditional SUV, unlike some other vehicles that are in the class, and your own like HVAC system back here, because you have dual zone climate just back here on its own. You get a very solid rear armrest with a nice clicking action for the cup holders, along with the same quality materials that you get in the front. The same metals, leather, Alcantara. It's a nice place to be overall. Dual USB ports and a 12-volt car outlet are also standard. Wait, first, before we do anything. Okay, yeah. All right, sorry, I was way too excited about that. As you can see, we have a power rear lift gate. Comes with 28 cubic feet in the back and 57 cubic feet with the rear seats folded. Now you might hear those numbers and be like, huh, the Volkswagen Arteon has 55 cubic feet in the rear, and you'd be right. It is very similarly sized to the Volkswagen Arteon, which is just a lift-back sedan. That more says something about the Arteon than this, because honestly, you have enough space for a decent amount of gear, and then we also have a very small, sort of pathetic front trunk that's really just good enough for your charging stuff. And if you empty it out, maybe a very small duffel. Behind the wheel of the Audi e-Tron, you're really not reminded much that this is a different vehicle. It feels like a Q8, just the size of a Q5, which gives it, one, a more premium feel than the Q5, but also it makes it feel a little bit more nimble than the Q8. Now, don't get me wrong, it still feels a little heavy just because it is, but coming through here, you know, big water puddles, many imperfections in the road, the e-Tron stays planted.
It handles like a well-mannered brute. The suspension is hardly ever phased in any setting, and the ride is tranquil. Switching modes from dynamic to all-road or comfort results in a noticeable change in body roll and brake dive, but the low center of gravity means it's never off-putting. The e-Tron is plain smooth. It's not as plush as an old Cadillac or a Bentley, but if you've driven an expensive Audi SUV in the last few years, the e-Tron will have that familiar, sharp, but collected ride.
So right now I am in the comfort setting, which on top of making the suspension softer and keeping it in about its middle height for the air ride, comfort mode also lightens up the steering. I mean, it really is pretty floaty, whereas in sport, it really does liven up. It's especially noticeable at lower speeds. When you're like around a parking lot, comfort is like single fingertip kind of effort to move it. Whereas dynamic is still, you can feel a little bit of heft in it. The ride is very quiet. Right now I'm on a really rough road and it's pouring down rain. So standard, we have 355 horsepower. That doesn't sound like a whole lot for how heavy it is and how much the car costs. But that's because 355 really isn't the max horsepower. If you put it into its sport mode, you can activate what they call boost. Now boost gives you an additional 47 horsepower and bumps torque from 414 pound-feet to 490, and you really feel it. This thing takes off in boost. Not so much from a standstill, but it's really apparent whenever you're going like say 30 or 40, knocking into sport. And now we have 404 horsepower at our disposal. Unfortunately, I don't really have a great road to demonstrate all of that power, but it really hits you like a brick. I mean, like, you don't really even need a very long stretch just to feel how immediate that torque is.
Oh yes, the torque is immediate, effortless, unforgiving.
Dangerous to children and pregnant women.
I know, that's a comment featured in every electric car review. So yeah, it reacts quick. Whatever. What surprised me was the amount of buildup it needed at low speeds though. Off the line it feels kind of lethargic, even when it's in its 8-second boost. There has to be some sort of software telling it to slow its roll at low speeds in order to provide a smoother experience, because had it not done that, I swear this thing would have hit 60 in the mid to high 4 seconds.
Oh man, oh. Yeah, you start breaking some laws pretty quick. Not going to lie. But it's super fun and it's addicting. So Audi's setup is 2 AC induction motors. Similar to what would be on a Tesla. AC induction motors would be the same kind that like lift your elevators and stuff like that. These are 3-phase. If you care at all or know what that means, you can charge at a 150 kilowatt speed. The nearest one is the Tesla supercharger, which is only at 120 watt. The way they do that is through a water-cooled system.
Charge times on a 240 volt upgraded household outlet would be about 8.5 to 9 hours for a full charge. If you were to plug it in like a lamp, then it would take about 80 hours. Audi is working with Electrify America to bring hundreds of 150 kilowatt hour chargers to different places along the US. At 150 kilowatts, the e-Tron can charge up to 80% in just 30 minutes. Currently though, there are somewhere around 20,000 chargers, including medium and high speed in the US, which that might sound like a lot, but it isn't. That's an issue I will tackle in a future video, but for now, rest easy that the e-Tron is prepared for the future.
As far as battery size goes, this has a 95 kilowatt hour battery. At 84 kilowatt is usable. For comparison's sake, the I-Pace is a 90 kilowatt hour battery.
And that has an EPA range of 234 miles compared to the e-Tron's 204. I'd be curious how well that range would hold up if someone was driving consciously in the e-Tron, because it seemed like it was doing well for me and I was blasting the AC and driving it, not in an efficient manner. Plus, Audi has a sick, nasty regen system that uses the paddle shifters to go between regen levels. Hit the downshift paddle and you can increase regen up to a max that would still leave you with needing the brakes, while the plus button does the opposite. But the cool thing is that Audi seamlessly implemented regen into the brake pedal. You'll notice the power gauge dive deeper into charge when you hit the brakes. That's because it will put even more energy back into the battery when you hit the brake pedal. Only when you have to stop in a more timely manner do the brakes actually come into use. Despite this, Audi is bested in range by the more expensive base Model X, which gets an EPA rating of 238 miles. That range advantage is nice, plus the Model X has a few other advantages, namely standard autopilot. I think the e-tron's lack of adaptive cruise on the regular model is ridiculous. This thing starts at 75 grand and a base model Forester has it beat. For 6 grand more, you can have a Tesla Model X that takes adaptive cruise to the next level. Now, the Audi still comes with a lane keep assist and forward collision mitigation dubbed Presense City, and a few other nannies, but they held out on adaptive cruise on the Premium Plus, so you have to go to the Prestige for that. And even then, it's far from Tesla's autopilot.
When in boost, the Audi E-Tron will do 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds. Definitely not groundbreaking.
And it loses on paper to the Jaguar I-Pace and base Model X while keeping up with the upcoming EQC. There are currently plans for a hopped-up e-tron.
When it comes to performance, the Model X is going to be the winner. It just is. And with the range, it's a more efficient vehicle. It goes further. It's quicker. So then, what is the e-tron's advantage? Why e-tron over Model X? Or the I-Pace for that matter? Well, the e-tron is just a really good car. It's a luxury SUV, a proper one. It's got the interior. It's got the cool virtual cockpit display, the 2 large screens that don't look cartoony and that are easy to navigate and have a nice capacitive touch feel to them. It's got the real wood, the soft touch leather, the Alcantara, and it's got the quiet, subdued ride, the confidence-inspiring steering. It's just a refined vehicle that's well put together with a very solid fit and finish. And on top of all those things, it also happens to be electric.
The Model X and I-Pace might have the edge on paper, but if you want a luxury SUV through and through that also adheres to a green lifestyle, the new Audi e-tron is a great choice. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Huge shout out to Royal on the East Side for allowing me access to the e-tron. Royal on the East Side is a dealership in Bloomington, Indiana. The staff are honest and knowledgeable about their products. If you're looking for a new or used car, check them out.